Reminder, today's show is sponsored by our friends at Fanduel and Factor, who we appreciate oh so much. But the reason you're all here, previewing the Miami Dolphins. Now, the Patriots coming off a tough loss against the Eagles, but the defense played an outstanding game, held the Eagles defense under 20 points, which I'm not sure anybody but the Patriots defense expected going into that one. This week, another tough task facing off against the Miami Dolphins, and Tua Tagovailoa, who threw for 400 yards, I thought looked like his best performance as a pro. To break down what the Eagles do well and how the Patriots can exploit the Dolphins defense. Did I say Eagles or Dolphins? I don't know. I'm so excited. I'm very excited. To help me break it down, I've got Tyler DeSena from the Weeball podcast. Tyler, how are you doing, brother? Thank you so much for joining.
I'm doing great. I'm excited. This should be a really fun matchup. I think these are two teams that, kind of have completely opposite strengths when it comes to, their offenses and defenses. So I'm excited to break down some tape and show you guys what I think the Dolphins are good at and what might be exploitable.
Yep, I'm excited, Tyler. You do a fantastic job. You popped on my radar just before this summer, and I was like, this dude kills it. So I had to get you on for Film with Friends, obviously. So the first thing we're going to talk about, the slant wheels. I think people are pretty familiar with the concept at this point from the Dolphins, and they love that short motion. Now, can you prep us? Because this is something the Patriots have already seen. When's the last time they saw it? And I'll pull up the first tape we're going to go over right now, but just give us a brief intro into the motion and how the Dolphins like to use those plays.
Miami definitely used a variation of this last year. It was more of a longer motion. It was elongated. It was more coming across the field. And honestly, it's the team that we played last week in the Chargers that were really able to exploit that last year because they were either rocking and rolling their safeties. They would kind of, play a deeper safety based on the passing strength. But now Miami's changed their slant wheel entirely. And because the fact that the Patriots haven't seen a Tua Miami Dolphins offense since week 1 of last year, there's a lot of things that have changed. So I guess going in here to this first play, this is kind of the basis of what Miami really likes to run. If it's like, this is it. Before you may have seen something to the effect of maybe there's a receiver over here on the bottom of the screen, and then they motion, and then there's a wheel, and then the slant behind it. We know the play, but they've changed it up a little bit this year, and it doesn't matter who the receiver is. It doesn't have to be Tyreek Hill. In this instance, it's River Craycraft, who is here lined up essentially as a tight end. And what they're going to do here is a short motion, like you said, jet him out, time it up with the snap, and then all of a sudden you've got linebackers trying to jet out here to go cover River Craycraft on plays like these. And this is kind of their basis for the whole thing. This is the one they used a ton last season. It's the RPO version of this. Durham Smythe's going to sneak out into the flat, and they're essentially just trying to play a numbers game. You see that they've got these linebackers coming up here, and then right here, Tua dump off into the flat because they've got guys chasing in coverage. This is the bread and butter for Miami. And this is kind of the most vanilla example. This is the one that I would say is most similar to how they did it last year, because there is a motion, but last year it probably, like I said, would have come from down here, but it is a little bit different. It's shortened, and you see that River Craycraft, if Tua is able to set his feet, that might be a throw he wants to make. This is the kind of thing that was putting so many teams in big trouble last year, because you could get 2 or 3 different guys open on one of these plays, and when Tua's operating in these RPOs, he's nearly unstoppable. I think that this is kind of the basis of what you're probably going to see, because Miami has worked so much to help this beat man coverage. What's really funny is that this was designed essentially to beat like 2 high zone coverages, because it's so much of what Miami saw. And you might think outside slants aren't exactly the way to beat 2 high, but because Miami runs these slants a little deeper, this is not a perfect example of it, but sometimes they'll run it even deeper and it essentially becomes a post. Now because they've been able to implement, this little motion here from River Craycraft, they're throwing off the ability for corners and safeties to kind of communicate these and figure out which routes they're going to cover. So it's going to take a lot of really good communication in order to stop this.
I was going to say the Patriots are luckily pretty well equipped in terms of their coaching staff, because they are one of the defenses does a very good job of knowing who's got who, understanding that you have to have a certain level of depth and leverage in order to defend these types of concepts. Now, how exactly did they build off of this? Because like you said, this is pretty foundational, pretty vanilla for them. How do they make it tougher for defenses to defend once they have, all right, in our heads, this is what we're going to be seeing?
Okay, I'll move on to the next one here. Let me pull it up real quick. This one is more of similar stuff, but it's just kind of proof that they can do it out of a variety of different looks. This one is an empty look, which statistically Tua has dominated out of empty, which is kind of why they like putting him in these situations. And this is another prime example that it doesn't have to be Tyreek Hill or somebody running it. Again, this is River Craycraft here running the slant, and this is Eric Ezukama running the wheel. And they're essentially going to do the same thing again, coming out of a 5 wide set, giving to the ability to space out linebackers and safeties in coverage like this. Even though it's a middle of the field closed coverage, he's going to be able to throw into this a ton of times. I think that this is, again, just another example of how they've kind of expanded upon it. But I have a better one that I'll show here in a minute. That's kind of one of their little iterations of it, is the fact that they can run it out of empty, and it allows Tua to kind of play hots. They've got this little like drag coming across the field here. I mean, I'm assuming that because Miami's done this a lot, probably their zone side, and this is probably their man side. If you look here, these two guys end up wide open. So, what ends up happening if they end up making this a full field read, I don't know, but Miami's done a lot of it where it's sometimes it'll be half field this and then half field a man read, depending on the play and what Tua sees pre-snap.
And these zone defenses, I've been asking guys on the Patriots all week about, like, how do you really defend a guy like Tua, who's one so good with his eyes? So if you're like just regular spot drop, you're reading the quarterback to decide where you're supposed to be going. He's so good at moving, like where his vision's going to be, or just starting out with his eyes on one part of the field or one area of the field. And it's not where he's actually trying to throw. And then defenses obviously will move to try to accommodate. And then with his accuracy, he's putting it in. I saw, especially this game, so many tight windows downfield where you'd think, okay, this kind of offense, you want to play more zone coverage, try to protect against the deep ball. But no, because Tua is excellent at not only manipulating those coverages, but also putting it into windows where his guys can make plays. Now I got another clip for us.
Yeah, just like in exactly what you were saying, Miami built this offense in order to stop zone coverage. They didn't really get a lot of man last year until teams like the Chargers, who are traditionally a too high safety zone team, came out and were like, we want to test to his arm. We want to make him throw deeper passes down the field, and we want to make you beat us with man. And Miami was running a lot of these spot throws, and they simply weren't working. So the fact that they've done so much to change this is more of them meeting man coverage, but this is kind of a counter off of what they've been able to do. You wouldn't look at this off the bat and think that this is going to be a dagger for Tyreek Hill coming across the screen over here, but it is. Like I said, again, Tyreek Hill going to start off essentially a tight end. They're going to snap it. And J.C. Jackson's already at a disadvantage because he's got way too much ground to cover. Miami knew that the safety was going to get depth as soon as they saw Tyreek Hill in motion. And, I mean, this is beautiful stuff here that he runs the dig, absolutely torches him. This is kind of one of their counters. That's the thing, is it's so hard to communicate this. And because the fact that like teams were expecting, because Miami was running it, like I said, nearly every play, where it would be like Tyreek over here and LA would have a safety up here and they'd be playing their, maybe a 2-high coverage, maybe a single high, and they'd rock and roll the safeties down to play the different passing strength. But now you don't know where it's going to be coming from, and you don't even know if it's going to be the main part of the play. And like I said, it gives Tyreek, like a lot of people have brought up arena football, CFL. This doesn't make Tyreek take such a wide angle, but because that's what last year's motion did. It required Tyreek. He couldn't really cut because he was running all the way across the field and he's trying to maintain speed. This gets him while he's still building up speed, and then he's just able to use it to his advantage. Tua finds him wide open over the middle of the field, and obviously he's going to make guys pay. I mean, the fact that a play like this, you're watching River Craycraft get absolutely, like, he's getting beaten with the press right here, and the fact that Tyreek just absolutely outruns the clear out. Like, no matter what you do here, you would have to play this extremely aggressive, and at that point, who knows? But it's just this kind of stuff. Miami was getting LA with it all day.
It's funny you say it's like arena football, because Jonathan Jones explicitly said when I asked him, like, yeah, it's pretty much like Canadian football where these guys are getting the head start. And him saying that's also funny because these, I don't know, you can't defend those deep downfield lateral cuts because you have to respect Tyreek Hill's speed, obviously. But because you have to overplay it so much, it gets to the point where you're just like, all right, as long as you're not taking the top off against me, I just have to pray my pass rush gets there. And that's why one of my keys for this game was you need complementary football. Because if they're going to run like – I'm sorry, yeah, go on.
No, I'm just saying that is the biggest thing. I think that New England's pass rush finding a way to get home fast, but not necessarily with a ton of like blitzing and send. Because the thing that Tua has done a great job of, especially in the Chargers game, the few times LA blitzed, he was finding hots, he was exploiting, like replacing defenders. He's done a really good job of that. There were times where those things would really get him. I think the biggest key for New England is going to be finding a way to mix up the back end, make him read it more post snap, but also being able to get home quickly with, 4, maybe 5 guys. Cause it's just like, if you're sending like 5 or 6, you're in a position where you've got Jalen Waddle and like Tyreek Hill, and they don't have to run deep routes, and you can just chuck it underneath and go let them get 20, which a lot of teams haven't done. And honestly, I mean, I don't think it's, a great strategy, like I said, but then if you're not able to get pressure with 4, then you're going to get plays like this where he's able to sit back. And there's other plays too where Tua had just enough time to go rip something down the field. It's a weird situation. Miami's offensive line looked much improved in week 1, and they're getting Teron Armstead back healthy, which is absolutely huge. He practiced, I believe, for the first time today without his red no contact jersey.
Yeah, saw that.
So that's big. But it all comes down to how good is the continuity on that team. Because if the line is in sync like they were in week 1, they're picking up stunts correctly. A lot of their play actions have heavy run motions with a lot of pulling guards and stuff. If all that's communicated really well, it makes them a lot harder to stop.
Yeah, I know. I was looking back even at tape of last year and just trying to see like what were they trying to do? Like where did Tua, not look so hot? What can they replicate? Really, it's a combination of one, if you blitz him when he's under center, and they go with the run action. So that, all right, by the time his back is turned, you have a little more time to diagnose what's going on, and then you can really affect and stop him from making those downfield throws. But besides that, it was really the only times he looked like he was off or it slowed them down was when they got a rush quickly before he could really set up, or you take away that first read and give your pass rush another tick. Like you said, that's why it's so important for you to try to switch up the picture on him so that his first read isn't there, and then he has to go to the next one, and then it's a matter of, all right, does he have the time to set up, be comfortable? But at the same time, I know you're going to touch on this later, he looked really good off schedule and off platform, which you really don't see from Tua considering this offense is already dangerous enough. But yeah, this touchdown, let's go.
Yeah, that was the biggest upgrade was Tua off structure. But this isn't even necessarily the slant. This isn't the same motion, but it's further showing what Miami does out of stacks and the fact that teams are so scared of them out of like stacks because they've like done well with the motion later in the game. Like I said, there's other plays that I'm going to show, but this one just completely throws LA off their game because Miami knew that whatever the passing strength was, if they had a stack over here, that was going to be the side that the safeties played deep on. And you see it right here. So what does Miami do? They further are going to manipulate this. They're going to move the linebackers over with Mike McDaniel just going entirely into his bag. This is Durham Smythe, the tight end, running in orbit motion. I don't ask, but Mike McDaniel, he's doing it. And to be honest, I mean, if he was thrown to this side, that's pretty open. But not the point. Like I said, out of the stack, they're immediately looking to see what's going to happen here. They've got a little bit of conflict right there, but it leaves Tyreek out on an island. He's pressed, and Derwin James is coming up because of that motion to the other side, potentially trying to take a crosser because Miami loves those crossers. They ran multiple of them this game, and then just Tua looking off, knowing where he's going to go the entire time. This is money, and this is the kind of stuff where it's like if you play a lot of man coverage against Tyreek and Jalen Waddle, it may have worked one time when Tua went 10 for 28 against the Chargers. But even then, Tua hit a couple of deep balls in that game. And it's just like eventually you're going to get burned playing like this. And teams are just too scared. I mean, these are Braxton Berrios and River Craycraft, two guys who, by all intents and purposes, are not necessarily burners. But because of the fact that Miami's just done so much damage out of these kind of looks, they're so focused on this side of the screen. Derwin James is coming down, and Tua is able to just layer it over the top. So I think these are kind of the things that they've used to counter off of what they've done in the past. And they've just kind of got so many different things that they can do out of this, and so much that I don't even think that they've done yet that could necessarily be really, really strong out of these bunches, these stacks, things like that.
Was this the play where Tua went to the sideline and was like, talking to Wes Welker, he was like, I told you that was going to work. Is this the one that was?
Tyreek did that, yeah.
Yeah, Tyreek, jeez.
He was like, I saw something. Do I know exactly what that was? No, but I could imagine it has something to do with the way that they're playing these safeties. Because, I mean,
I was
Derwin
gonna
James
say.
coming down off this motion, like if you watch Derwin James just takes a couple extra steps up. And Miami, I mean, Derwin James honestly had a really strong game, but Miami was attacking him all day and just putting him in positions where he couldn't make plays in the passing game. And this is just another example of that because they knew he wanted to be really aggressive. And they run something coming over the middle. This ends up being like an out route, but I don't think there's really much intent on throwing either of these. This is right off the pick, 1st and 10, or right off a punt, 1st and 10. And Tua just layers it over the top. I mean, these are the kind of plays where it's just like you could be focused so much on trying to stop like the stack or the wheel motion, and then if they do something behind it, you've got to be able to mix it up on them and kind of take advantage of what they've done.
I'm still trying to figure out who had Smythe. Like, why is he that wide? I can't tell if it was like a linebacker was supposed to take him. Like, so it looks like man coverage everywhere else.
Yeah. What's really weird is LA did a similar thing earlier in the game with Keenan Allen, and Miami looked like they were in man coverage, and nobody took Keenan Allen off of a similar motion. So it might just be a trend with this game. I don't know, because this linebacker looked like he was about to back out and take Barrios, I think this is, and then have the corner come out. Like this little, like he like subtly like looks over, like, is that my guy? And then just kind of stops and takes the middle of the field. Not exactly sure, but whatever happened, it led to a touchdown.
Didn't work. Whatever it was did not work.
And that was the biggest thing is Miami was just exploiting LA having linebackers on the field and then exploiting press coverage for a majority of the day.
Once again, communication. Now we're going to get to the stuff, as if that wasn't already intimidating enough, that Mike McDaniel can just give a defense fits from the sideline. Tua Tagovailoa was doing it on the field. Because the whole thing about Tua is that, he's great on schedule. You know, he throws to a spot. That's what he's going to hit. If you get him outside the pocket, moving, yada, 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 he's not as accurate. He's not as effective. But we saw last week that was not the case. Tua was making some fantastic throws where he was rolling out, throwing dimes to the sideline over the middle, plays where he was under pressure, stepping up and delivering deep balls. Thought there were still a couple moments where you get that Tua, like, all right, that was pretty badly underthrown, where it's still possible for a defensive player to get a play on it. But, I mean, still, he was making several plays I didn't know he was even capable of. And I know you got plenty of those. I'm excited to hear your take on him, so we'll start with this one.
Yeah, before I get into that, just saying, like, I think the key for New England is going to be interior pressure, like you said. I don't have those plays here, but there were 2 times where they ran like a crosser and like they ran an over and then a post behind it, and Tua tried to hit the post. And both times that he didn't hit the post, it's because they got interior pressure. He had to throw it flat-footed, and then it ended up being short. So I think that's a big thing. And if you notice on a play that I'll show later, Tua being able to step up in the pocket is such a big thing. And he really is very solid when it comes to playing pressure off the edges. It's when it comes to the interior that he's always had issues with, and every quarterback to an extent has issues with dealing with pressure up the middle. But I think that's kind of where they have to be really good. And I think that, going after a guy like Isaiah Wynn might be the weak link of that front. And I know you guys obviously
fans love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, of the 3 guys, I mean, as a Dolphins, like knowing that Dolphins O-line, Connor Williams has been really strong besides some like a little snap issues here and there. Robert Hunt is probably one of the most underrated guards in football. And then Isaiah Wynn, although Isaiah Wynn's performed well in, preseason and now going into the regular season, that's obviously somebody you guys know and somebody that, it was let go of for a reason. But going into this first off script play from Tua, this is another thing that I'm talking about with this honestly goes into the wheel motion as well, because Miami runs a similar motion here. Tyreek again lined up as a tight end, and they're going to kind of do a little bit of like a smash concept here. Tyreek's going to run this little like stop route. Waddle's going to come in with a corner behind it, and Tua pumps on this. I mean, this is potentially throwable, but that's not the point. He's got Braxton Berrios fighting off a press coverage here. He's got a little bit of pressure coming in off the edges, and again, a pocket for him to step up into. He takes a face mask right there. He's getting grabbed by Joey Bosa, and he's still able to get out of the pocket. And the biggest thing with Tua was like, how much does the arm strength fall off if you're getting him out of the pocket? It doesn't here, and the accuracy doesn't either. I mean, this ball's in between both defenders. and honestly protects Braxton Berrios from potentially getting clobbered here by this corner. So, I mean, these are the kind of plays where it's just like, this isn't the stuff that you're like, oh, we've stopped it. We see this motion. We've covered both of these relatively well. Tua stopped, didn't rip it. We should be in a really good spot. But the fact that he's able to continue, get to like his third read here and go dump this off for first down on 3rd and 6, nonetheless. Pretty big, like tide swinging play in the game.
And one thing I was noticing just from Tyreek Hill is, like you mentioned, because it's a shorter motion, it just opens up the route tree for him. Because because he was going across the formation, he's going so fast that he's not ever running a curl unless it's something that's 15 yards, because you need to give him at least time to be able to run in a straight line and decelerate. But this, it's so much harder to defend. I know we're going on Tua here, but just seeing that, if you can go short, intermediate, deep, that's very scary. And again, I mean, plays like this where, like you said, he's on his third read, he's moving sideways, and he's still able to put it on the money with velocity. That's the kind of stuff that takes the Dolphins from like, all right, it's a playoffs, let's see what can happen if we really affect Tua against a good defense, to, oh no, Tua can still punish you even if you do everything right. We got more Tua nightmare fuel ahead of us, but first, Amit, pay the bills. Let's throw it over to our friends at Fanduel. Please and thank you.
Get ready for the NFL season with incredible offers from Fanduel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets. Guaranteed. That's guaranteed. Plus, all customers who bet $5 will get $100 off NFL Sunday Ticket from YouTube and YouTube TV. Now is the best time to join Fanduel. It absolutely is. The app is easy to use, and you can be on everything from spreads to player props and more. So visit FanDuel.com/Boston. Kick off the NFL season with an offer you won't want to miss. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, Tyler. So we got another Tua play. This one off script. Let's see what he can do when plays break down in 2023. What you got?
Yeah, again, another pretty – I mean, this was how Miami was running their offense the whole day. Again, you're going to see the short motion. This time, it's kind of more of a clear out. They've got Waddle underneath. And Tua looks like he might be potentially trying to rip this over the middle. Doesn't really turn out that way. Smythe's running a little bit of a seam. Tua feels some pressure here, and he immediately gets out of the pocket. But the most impressive thing is Tua's arm strength just looks vastly improved, which is such a scary thing, because him just getting to, closer to average to slightly above average arm strength takes this Miami Dolphins offense that was already so deadly in the intermediate game, makes them scarier deep, and makes them scarier on plays like this. Durham Smythe right here, he's going to notice Tua coming out of the pocket, and he does a really good job settling down, getting in front of the safety, putting his hands in the air like, hey, I'm wide open. And Tua uncorks a really nice throw here, again, on the move, about the 31-yard line to about the 45. I mean, that's a really nice pass from him. And again, another time where Miami's moving the chains when LA did a really good job stopping this. They've got two guys here. If Tua tries to rip this inside to Waddle, likely a pick or a pass breakup. This is relatively well covered. Tua's got some pressure. Like, this is a time where the Chargers think they've won the rep, but I mean, 3 or 4 times this game, Tua made them pay, and this is just another example of it, and a really nice ball from him.
And he's always been such a great processor. It was just the two things were okay. Sometimes it's a little fluky because he'll go through his progressions really quickly, but sometimes he'll lock onto something and throw it anyway. And then again, like we've already said, there was also the issue of, okay, but if the pass rush gets home and affects him and makes him uncomfortable, what's he going to do? And like you said, with the arm strength, man, it really, he looks like the complete package. And you don't need him throwing those crazy deep balls where people are going to make fun of his arm. Like, again, he had some of those throws where you can criticize if you want to, but these positives, like as a football fan, you got to be pretty excited just to see what this offense is capable of, because it's not like Tua ever had training wheels or anything. I don't want to suggest that, but it seems like, okay, now we're cooking with, I don't know, what's more effective than propane. I don't know. I'm not a gas expert, but Tua's definitely cooking with something pretty intense these days. Now we got another off-script play, this time to former Patriot / AFC East journeyman Braxton Berrios. I'll pull that one up for you.
Yeah, Braxton Berrios had a big game in his first game. Not a ton of catches, But every time Miami seemed to need just sure hands in a big situation, they got it out of Braxton Berrios. And here's a really nice – this is probably the most underrated throw of the day from Tua just because it kept the drive alive. I believe this was 3rd and 15. Miami had a drop snap before this, an incomplete pass, I believe. They're backed up. And this is, again, another scenario, a switch release here at the top. Miami is never going to run clean off the line and just, do anything normally. But this is where it gets big because this is kind of what we were talking about that New England might need to do. There's some pressure coming from the interior here. It is coming from the edge as well. But the fact that, Khalil Mack here is able to help collapse this pocket, Tua is backed up, several yards behind the line of scrimmage, and you're thinking this play's probably dead. There's a lot of guys running pretty deep down the field. Durham Smythe, check down option, I guess. And then you got Braxton Berrios here. And Tua's able to just somehow magically slip out of this. And honestly, I think this might be a testament to the jiu-jitsu he's been doing, the new core strength exercises, because the way he steps up and is able to keep his balance right here and just kind of jump out of it is huge. And then you've got Braxton Berrios coming over. And, this ball doesn't get any better than this. We're seeing that, we got a first down marker here at the 35, 36-yard line. Tua's letting this go at the 9. Braxton Berrios right on the sideline. It's a perfect throw. I have the other angle of it here.
We need that.
Yeah. Again, Tua, there it is, 98 getting some pressure. Khalil Mack starting to come in. This guy pretty much unblocked. Tua's able to just evade both of them. Like I said, it's this little stutter in because that immediately he's looking to step up in the pocket, which is such a huge thing for him. If he's able to get his legs under him, those passes usually aren't the ones that you're laughing at. But this little stop right here, noticing that this pocket is collapsing and that he's got to get out, these are the kind of things that he wasn't doing in years prior. And then just off platform entirely. He throws this ball almost entirely in the air. Like that is not an arm angle that you were usually seeing from Tua and thinking this is going to succeed. 1 foot. We could make this the NFL logo, I think, right here. But Braxton Berrios, you can't put this in a better spot. It's like a 29-yard throw on the move. These are the kind of things that just make like you said, make the Dolphins offense that much scarier because, you think you've got it locked up 3rd and 15, and you're like, oh, yeah, the quarterback isn't a creator, so we just got to make sure we hold up on the back end. And here they blitz, and here – they relatively held up on the back end, not even bad coverage. It's just a better throw.
Heartbreaker, man. 3rd and 15. You think you're one play away from ending the drive, and then he does that. And those are the throws that Tua used to make that were kind of funny because he just wasn't very good at being on the move, making those throws not across his body there. But still, when he was on the move, the inconsistency there, we just didn't really fear him outside of structure in that capacity. But jeez, man, this is genuine nightmare fuel for Patriots fans. You can do everything right. Get him in the long yardage situations, throw them off, and still uncorks the time. And now we have another 3rd and long conversion from Tua because the guy was simply on fire.
This is, Miami, 2 back-to-back incompletions off of this. They need a touchdown to take the lead. And this was the moment when Tua just decided that he wasn't going to lose this game. And LA did everything in their power here to make sure that they took away the stuff Tua's great at. The play is cut off a little bit, but Derwin James starts out lined up down in the box here. He moves around. Now he's over here. And Miami, when he's down in the box, thinks, hey, they're going to get the look they want. Like I said, they've kind of converted their slants into, cover 2, cover 4 beaters, where they can have a guy like Jalen Waddle come over the middle and just kind of split these guys. And they might be thinking, hey, this might be a middle of the field open coverage, but it's not. Derwin James is going the last second before the snap, kind of bail right here. And we realize we've got cover 1 double robber, which, if you didn't think you didn't think the Chargers respected Tua, they certainly respect his ability to throw over the middle of the field because you've got literally guys designed to take away potential routes like this. And Tua's looking at it, as you see right here, his hands are separating. He wanted to throw this ball, but he notices it isn't open. He notices Jalen Waddle fell over on the route. And again, these are the kind of situations where it's so dangerous to get Tua in because we talk about, Tua essentially, I think a lot of people Dolphins fans know this. If you can put him in a 7-on-7 situation, he's going to light up defenses. And this is the kind of play where they put so many assets towards taking away the middle of the field that, LA thinks they have this locked up. It is the slant. It is now, instead of a wheel, it's a bit of a delay fade. And they're like, there's no way Tua's going to throw this. We're just going to man up Tyreek. If we get enough pressure, which they kind of do from the edges, forcing Tua to step up and you lock this up, this is the kind of play where LA thinks they've won at this point. But Tua steps up, and these are the kind of things you just didn't see from him before.
This throw.
This is the best throw of the week by far, and the best throw of Tua's career. I mean, just stepping up into an open pocket, being able to hit this in time, in stride, like it's a stellar throw and the kind of play that like not only keeps Miami alive, they would have had to go for it right here, and now you put them ahead of schedule. They're now in scoring range just off this one play alone, and it's just these are the kind of things that scare teams, because if Tua can just hit these, just enough to keep defenses on their toes, and they start going back to 2-eye, then all of the stuff that Miami was running last year is automatically 10 times more dangerous. So I think, almost all of these were against man coverage, and it just shows like, being a man-heavy defense might not stop Miami the same way it did last year, just because they have so many different plays that they're able to operate out of a similar structure. Like I said, in breakers, wheels or delay fades behind them, little stuff from the flat from, I believe that's Raheem Mostert, just kind of jet out into the flat. If this is a zone, you've got defenders in conflict, and now it's a cover one double robber situation, and Tua just ball game right there. You at that point.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And we've seen the Patriots use the same kind of coverage, a double robber in obvious pass situations and long yardage. And it's basically saying, I triple dog dare you to try to throw over the middle of the field. And again, you think Tua, that's bread and butter. You're taking away the middle. You're putting him in a position to do what he doesn't want to do. And I think his trainer actually uploaded that and was like, that's awesome. We've been working on this throw, and like actually had a clip of Tua with that exact same like motion where he steps up in the pocket. He's kind of on the move and delivers a sideline dime. Got to tip your cap to him, man. The dude works his butt off, and clearly that's been paying off, because that was a gorgeous throw. Again, one of those where you're like, all right, this isn't the Tua that we've come to know, and some people have unfairly made fun of. Like, this dude is making all the throws and genuinely scary. I think we've frightened Patriots fans enough with what Tua in this offense can do. You did a fantastic job breaking down how Mike McDaniel puts him in position to succeed, how Tua is able to actually capitalize on those, and obviously Tyreek Hill is Tyreek Hill. Before we get over to the Miami Dolphins on the defensive side of the ball, we got to show some love to the people at Factor. Amit, pay those bills. With the NFL season officially underway, it's been pretty tough finding time to cook for myself and my family, and even tougher making meals that both taste good and don't destroy my body. Thankfully, our friends at Factor provide ready-to-eat meal kits that are not only chef-prepared, but also dietitian-approved and delivered straight to your door. Now, I don't know about you, but I don't know any chefs or any dietitians, so this has been a huge help for me on a daily basis. These save me a ton of money. I don't have to go to the grocery store to get ingredients. And most importantly, they taste fantastic. Additionally, they save me a desperate trip to the nearest fast food place when I have completely forgotten to cook myself dinner. Head to factormeals.com/PatsDaily50 and use code PatsDaily50 to get 50% off. That's code PatsDaily50 at factormeals.com/PatsDaily50 to get 50% off. All right, so Miami defense, new coordinator in Vic Fangio, a living legend. There's a lot of talk about the pass defense, and we'll get into that. But they struggled defending the ground game for the Chargers last week. Break this down for us and walk us through why exactly that was the case and how the Patriots can possibly exploit the ground game. I'll pull this clip up right now.
Yeah, I think that a big thing for Miami is going to be, or a big thing for New England is going to have to be pounding the rock and pounding it between the tackles, and obviously that's been a staple of New England Patriots football for as long as I've been alive, and probably well before it. But I think that it's a big thing here because of the fact that they're just the way that Miami plays defense was already susceptible to big runs, but the personnel that they have and the way that they're trying to work them in might also be something that you can benefit from. I'm going to start out with this Eckler run, and honestly, from this angle, mainly just showing the depth here of these safeties. I mean, Justin Herbert, obviously a quarterback with a cannon. I'm not saying Mac Jones can't throw the ball down the field. He definitely can, but you might not see this kind of depth. Because, this is pretty deep. And Miami immediately is guessing play action with these safeties dropping back like this. But I just wanted to show it that although you've got two really good run stuffing safeties in Javon Holland and Deshaun Elliott, you're going to have them backed up. And that automatically, like people know, you run the ball against two eye coverages. And that's what LA did. And they pound the rock. And in plays like this, it became big gains. So I've got a different angle that shows more of what Miami was doing up front. But I think one of the biggest things for them, at least on the back end, is if you can just stretch out Miami's defense enough with some play action, with some, plays over the middle of the field, make them retreat into more of the two eye coverages, which they were running a lot of the day against the Chargers, you're going to be able to exploit plays like this. I mean, this is a massive hole for Austin Eckler, and both of these safeties trying to come from depth, they're going to over pursue it. And then this becomes like a 55+ yard run.
It's going to be interesting if the Patriots can actually capitalize on this, because obviously Ramondre Stevenson, one of the league's better young backs, Zeke Elliott, not what he used to be, but he can still get it done. But the offensive line, you got Trent Brown and Sidney Sow. And I thought Sidney Sow had his ups and downs at right guard, but was one of the few bright spots in the run game for the Pats, who struggled to get the ground game going against obviously a fantastic Eagles front. But yeah, like I said, those two are in concussion protocol. David Andrews is dealing with an injury. And then you got backups at left guard and Antonio Mafi, and right tackle Calvin Anderson, who might even have to play left this week. So I'm going to be very intrigued at what Adrian Clem, their offensive line coach, and Bill O'Brien can do to take advantage of this matchup and see if they can actually use this to their benefit. Now, I know you got another big Eckler run up here. Let's pull this one up.
It's actually the same run. I just wanted
run
to show the end zone angle just because I think this shows more of what Miami's susceptible to up front. The Chargers made it very clear that they wanted to run usually at the side that Jerome Baker was on, because of the fact that David Long is so known for his run stuffing ability. And this is another example of it, a handoff to this side. They're going to adjust the play a little bit. But I think that this kind of shows the stuff that LA was doing and how it was working. Here we got two double teams right here. And the thing is that Miami's defensive linemen, and specifically their interior defensive linemen, are really talented players. Christian Wilkins, you guys know how good he is. Zach Sealer, one of the most underrated players in the NFL, in my opinion. I've been on the Zach Sealer fan club for years now, as soon as he got signed. And they're all really great players. But the thing is, operating in that Brian Flores, Josh Boyer defense, they were kind of just asked to go eat. Go get after guys, not necessarily play your responsibility when you have to. But a lot of the times it was just kind of one-on-one ISO ball, go win your matchup. But here they're being asked to do a lot of two-gapping, create separation with your hands, kind of sit back and wait. And that's made them really susceptible to double teams. There's just a little chip help here. Christian Wilkins is forced. He's trying to two-gap this a little bit. It's tough for him because of the fact that he already got the chip help here from the tight end. You've got Raekwon Davis, who slimmed down this offseason, and he's, having trouble being moved off the ball.
Oh, okay.
David Long is trying to come up, play this run fit. And then they're essentially trying to have these guys play their gaps. But the problem is, I think Miami might be asking a little bit too much of these guys in their first week, trying to get guys like Wilkins, Raekwon Davis to potentially two-gap this. And it led to a lot of Chargers open running lanes rather than them just kind of letting them play more of their ISO ball. And that's why Miami's two leading tacklers were Deshaun Elliott and Javon Holland, because a lot of runs were ending in the secondary. And I think that it's just going to be a weird adjustment period, because obviously I think most Dolphins fans know this. These aren't necessarily Fangio guys. Raekwon Davis, again, like I said, slimmed down this offseason, but he wasn't really a Fangio nose anyway, was more of a lanky kind of guy. He's big, don't get me wrong, but more of a tall, slender, not exactly a space eater. Zach Sealer has experience doing some space eating, but both him and Christian Wilkins are just a tad bit undersized. And having them try to eat double teams to pave way for linebackers, especially when these linebackers are trying to fill sometimes two gaps at once. You've got Jerome Baker trying to play this here. Doesn't do a great job of reading it either, but it's just Miami's asking so much of so many different guys. And this is kind of where I feel that they could be exploited if you kind of just have timely double teams and different concepts when their safeties are playing back so deep. Because Javon Holland and Deshaun Elliott are really dangerous, but it comes down to, if you're essentially playing them off the field, you're going to have a lot of runs like this.
Yeah, see, I was feeling when you said Raekwon Davis slimmed down, I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense, because when I was watching this tape, I noticed anytime the Chargers got a good double on him, he was getting washed out. which I didn't really,
Yeah.
he's like you said, he's not exactly a space either, but I was still surprised because he is such a big guy. And I also noticed a few times that Sealer and Wilkins is so disruptive that even when he's making a mistake, like you saw him still in the backfield affecting runs.
Yeah.
But it felt like the Chargers were able to capitalize on their over aggressiveness or the fact that they're more guys who are better when they're attacking and let off the leash. I feel like I saw some like pin pull and some trap kind of stuff like that, where you were just kind of waiting for those guys to get upfield, you wash them out, and then the run lane's open.
Yeah.
Is that what you saw as well?
100%. I think that it's a mix of both. Fangio said that I don't remember if it was Fangio or McDaniel, but one of them said specifically, like, we felt like too many guys were trying to make plays on their own. So I'm wondering how you change this, because to be honest, I'm intrigued, because as somebody who's still kind of learning the Vic Fangio defense and has been watching Brian Flores for like the Brian Flores kind of defenses for so many years, like, and Josh Boyer now last year, it is very interesting to see the difference in run fits, because I think Brian Flores' defense is a lot easier to like see and know what you're looking at. And Fangio, there's a lot of stuff going on at once, I think, up front. So certainly gonna be interesting. I think that Miami is in a weird situation where they just kind of don't have all of the personnel that they might want. They extended Sealer. They've been talking to Wilkins, but that extension hasn't gotten done. Raekwon Davis is due for a contract. And I think it's just a little bit telling that not all of those guys have been locked up, especially Wilkins, because of the fact that maybe this team is still looking for one more piece. And the biggest thing is I think that Miami doesn't have much depth behind them either. Yeah. I'm pretty sure Miami's 4 interior defensive linemen at the moment are those 3 and undrafted rookie Brandon Peely, who is a nose and played well at times in the preseason, but I don't know how much you're going to be looking for him to play. So it's going to be a weird thing. They brought in Deshaun Hand earlier this offseason. He got cut. They brought in other guys. They got cut. Emmanuel Ogba's played reps on the inside. There's a lot of moving parts. It's just going to come down to, is Fangio going to kind of more change up the scheme, or are these guys going to have to get up to snuff with the stuff that they're doing? That's where it really comes down to.
And Fangio's just been doing his thing for so long. It's kind of asking a lot of those kind of coaches to be like, all right, can you change philosophically what you're going to do, especially after you've been installing and talking about this all summer? That's going to, and especially in week 2, that may be, especially now that I know schematically, it's not even just an execution thing where, sometimes a run defense will get just like plowed through 1 week and they're like, all right, we're not letting that happen again. Because a lot of it is just like, you talk to NFL players, they're like, yeah, it's effort. A lot of the time run defense is effort and it's want to. But if you're being asked to do things that mentally it's harder to process and you're going slower, it's a lot harder for your physical side to actually come out and be able to dominate. Especially we're going to pull up, this is a gap run, a counter. And the Patriots, as we know, downhill, they love their gap stuff. So what did you see on this play?
This again, Miami goes really heavy here. They've got 7 guys in the box to match the personnel. Wow, this is a 5-second clip. I'm really good at cutting these, if you couldn't tell. But no, again, this is kind of a play where you've got Miami safeties more in the box. It's going to be the guard and the tackle, or the guard and the tight end are going to pull here, and it's going to be, like I said, a bit of a counter look. But this is the kind of stuff. This isn't a huge run. It's just more of the same. Christian Wilkins getting doubled. Raekwon Davis trying to hold his own. You got a double here on Zach Sealer. And then these are the kind of situations you kind of want to create, because you've got David Long, who's your better run stopping linebacker, getting washed out of the play because he's trying to come from the opposite side. And like I said, they were running at Baker a lot. You've got Parham over here, and then you've got a one-on-one with Jerome Baker. And then they just kind of cut through and get a few extra yards. And like I said, Miami's safeties have had to do a lot of the work making these tackles. So I mean, I'm not sure like what the recipe is for Miami to fix this. I'm just saying that I think it's something that, New England, obviously, like I said, power running team. If you can just get solid performances, I think, out of those interior guys, you're looking at a lot of situations like this where Jalen Phillips is having to try to fight from the backside. David Long is forced to kind of overplay this because of the fact that it's a counter. It's a long developing run and he's trying to be aggressive. And then you've got to have safeties come up. These are the kind of plays that LA was getting all day. I don't know if this was the specific drive, but there was a drive where LA didn't complete a pass and scored a touchdown. Mm-hmm. And it was just like run after run after run. And then they like try to screen and throw it incompletion. And it's just like Raekwon Davis here, even getting sealed a little bit on this is a single man matchup. Mm-hmm. And even here, like he's playing a gap, but he's getting sealed out a little bit. Zach Sealer and then Jerome Baker trying to play a gap. And you just end up with like 7-yard runs over and over again. And this is where I start to wonder, like, what is the fix? But as for, a Patriots preview, I just think this is something you could see a lot of.
And do you feel that the Dolphins linebackers, because when I was watching, it seemed like they were maybe attacking the wrong gaps at times. Do you think that was partially their own reads, or was that them trying to overcompensate for maybe the defensive line having a bit of trouble with these gap schemes and all these double teams and whatnot?
I think it's a mix of both. I think that, like I said, I'm not entirely sure on some of the Fangio run fits. Like, there are times where I think maybe this is the wrong linebacker play, but I'm seeing other people talk about it being a line play, something like that. So I'm still kind of learning it, but there were definitely times where it seemed like a 50-50 because, maybe they had Christian Wilkins two gapping and he gets, kind of washed out of the play. And now you've got to play two gaps as this linebacker and try to figure it out. And it seems like they were losing the 50-50s a lot of the time. And I think that, they were just trying to play one and then hope the other guy could play the other, and it wasn't working out. So I think it's a mix of both. And something that's really interesting is if New England, obviously they like to go heavy. They've got Mike Gesicki, Hunter Henry. They've got multiple tight ends. I know they've got more blocking types on the roster. Mike Gesicki surely won't be one of those. But I think that a big thing is if you can somehow manipulate the personnel to get Miami in nickel, they've benched David Long a little bit in the nickel scenario. Vic Fangio came out today and said that his starting nickel linebacker duo is going to be Jerome Baker and Andrew Van Ginkel, who was playing edge for most of his.
Right.
Yeah, and they've done the transition to try to move him inside as a off-ball linebacker. And he hasn't played bad, but it's just, is that somebody you necessarily want in the game opposite Baker, especially in scenarios where you might be able to be run on? I'm not sure. So I think that's somebody just to keep an eye on, especially if the Patriots come out in lighter looks and Miami starts, having to match those.
For sure. And the Bill O'Brien used a little bit of window dressing. We saw one play where they had it was a fake to Ramondre, and then they pretended like Mac was going to go out on a speed option with
Hunter the triple
going around. Exactly. And it's just okay, this is it's just enough that it got the edge defender to freeze and got Zeke freeze. So he's definitely going to test the eye, especially like you said, Van Ginkel is mostly an edge guy. So he's seeing the field in a totally different way. I'm sure Bill O'Brien's going to be all right, we're picking on you. All right, we got one more run. Take us through it, brother.
Yeah, again, this is kind of, the title of it is quite literally what it is. It's timely double teams, I think, are kind of the big thing. Here we've got a guard tight end double team on Wilkins. And like you said, even when he's not making a play, his get off is so good that he is getting in the backfield.
This is the exact one I was thinking about.
But this is the kind of stuff where he's getting washed out a little bit because, don't get me wrong, this is a great play by Austin Eckler, but you've got a little bit of chip help on Raekwon Davis that kind of pushes him out of the play. And then you've got Jerome Baker here forced to kind of play two gaps as a linebacker. And like I said, this is another one of these looks where this is more of their nickel, where they've got four down linemen or four lineman linebacker types like edges and interior linemen. And then they've got Van Ginkel and Baker. So even against one tight end, this is the kind of 11 personnel. This is the kind of stuff they're bringing out. And then Andrew Van Ginkel kind of over pursues here. And all of a sudden, this is going to the next level. And you've got Javon Holland having to come in and make a tackle. So I just think that there's a lot this is the kind of linebacker matchup that I think New England's going to want, because you've got one guy in Jerome Baker who is a solid man coverage defender. So you can kind of, it's going to be sometimes tough to play against him as a linebacker in coverage. But this isn't necessarily a run look that Miami is going to want. So if you can kind of manipulate personnel, get these two in the game, you're already seeing what the inexperience in the scheme is doing when you've got Andrew Van Ginkel out of the play, Raekwon Davis pushed a gap or two over, and then you've got to have Javon Holland coming from depth to go make a play, which, so many times this game he did to prevent a run from being 7 and made it 7 instead of 20 yards. So. Yeah.
Again, man, I really hope the Patriots can actually take advantage of this, because their trenches are in such terrible shape just in terms of their guys not even being available. But like you said, the personnel with Miami isn't really in a great place either. So it's going to kind of be a battle of, who can just, scotch tape this thing together for 1 week and actually be able to put together a performance where you actually either attack a weakness or, get exploited by a weakness. We will see.
Yeah,
But,
they've got just like really quickly. I think it's a lot of strength on strength and weakness on weakness for this team, for these two teams, because it's like you said, New England's offensive line extremely banged up. They were banged up last week, and Miami's defensive line. We don't really know how much of this is the personnel that Fangio is going to plan on ending the season with. So it's like you said, it's going to be a tough battle. And then you've got Miami's offense, New England's defense. Those are obviously their two strong units. New England's always been really good on the back end as far as cover guys. And then Miami has the best receiver duo in football. So that's where it gets interesting. And that's kind of why I think the key to the game could be New England's front, like pass rushing versus Miami's offensive line. Because we're still not 100% sure on whether Miami's offensive line has become a strength to the point where they can play against a New England front that has a lot of dangerous guys and just kind of like sorts them in and out. Like, it could be very interesting.
I agree. I think especially on that for the Miami offensive side of the ball, matchup is definitely going to be in the trenches. I think on the other side of the ball, because like you said, the run game is basically a question mark. We'll see what it is. And the offensive line for the Patriots is in a tough position. But I also think that you got somebody like Vic Fangio. The chess match he's going to have with offensive coordinator Bill O'Brien, I think is going to be another major key. Who can outwit who can be one step ahead or just be able to attack what the other person is trying to do and do that the most often. So we went through, obviously, the run game. I'm going to take a look at some clips for the Patriots offense using what the Chargers did against the Dolphins to try to see if they could scheme similarly. Because last week, the Patriots, and I mentioned this in a video we just released on Bill O'Brien scheming for success, he did a great job using bunch formations and empty formations to kind of manipulate what the Eagles were doing defensively, build on things, and attack their coverages. So I'll share my screen right here. All right, so right here, we've got what's known as a box check from the Fangio defense. As you can see here, it means the outside most corner who's got depth is going to take the first vertical. The guy who's inside takes the first inside vertical. Basically, you're just trying to take what route is coming into your leverage and at your depth. So then at the bottom, first outside to the flat is going to be the guy who's at the apex right here. And then you're going to see the linebacker right here is going to get the first inside. So the idea is, okay, someone comes into your area, you take them, just keeps from getting picked off or anything like that. So what we're going to see from the Chargers here is a motion that's very similar to what the Patriots did last week with Juju Smith-Schuster. There were about 3 times they motioned him from this number 3 spot to the number 1 spot, which is going to change how some of these things play out. But for this specific coverage, it's not too much of a strain because you're not communicating, okay, I have this guy based on numbers. Again, it's just areas. But the route we're going to see from the Chargers is going to do a great job exploiting this apex defender and even the inside linebacker. Because this guy, the number 2, is going to stem outside, so he manipulates the apex who's trying to cover the flat and doesn't really know who's going to break where. This guy, the number 3, is going to come in right behind him. Again, create that confusion where you have 2 guys basically in the same area. So the zone defender is going to have to react to what he sees. And then you're going to see the linebacker get squeezed inside by this dig route. So I'm going to run this play. You can see it already. Both of these corners are starting to expand based on the first releases. See that right there? They are out. The apex is outside. Linebackers inside, trying to get a little bit of disruption on this route. And look what happens. Little bit of a void inside for, I forget who the receiver is. Who is that receiver? That is Keenan Allen right there. But you see, being able to understand the rules, manipulate where these defenders go, and capitalize on the space created. I think that's going to be one of the biggest keys in this matchup is knowing, okay, in this situation, the Dolphins are going to want to do this. And if we have success against these looks, we can counter with this. What are your thoughts on this strategy, using these bunches to create a little bit of space?
This was one of the number one things I saw with Miami's pass defense. They weren't the main focus of what I was watching because of the fact that we gave up, I think it's like the 8th most efficient run game since like 2000 or something. But I think that this is something that's 100% true. I think that whenever you're playing deep zones like this and you've got guys that are assigned to those kind of coverages where they have to play the first thing that comes into your area, and then you're flooding that area with 3 different routes at a time, you're making guys think. And especially early on in the season when, they haven't seen all of these different looks yet, in game, they're going to be taking their, extra beat to think. So I think that kind of just making that, timely like decision, making them react a little late. Mac Jones, I think, does a really good job getting the ball into tight windows, like with time. So I think that if you could just, kind of manipulate that, I think that's kind of the way to win, is flooding those zones and then at times taking shots over the middle of the field, because Miami's going to come out in so many too high looks.
Absolutely. And now here's another strategy I think they're going to use, because you mentioned how you can kind of manipulate their personnel. What I noticed was, and I'm surprised because this isn't really something that modern NFL defenses do. A lot of defenses like the Patriots are adapting to where they'll play more nickel when you get base personnel groupings, which basically just have 2 receivers. In this specific case, the Chargers come out with 2 tight ends. So again, this is a look where usually you're going to get something like a third safety or maybe even another corner, but the Dolphins are going to respond with their base. So they have 2 linebackers in the middle, and what you're going to see the Chargers do, like I said, so they're going to have 2 receivers to the same side of the field right here, 2 tight ends to the other side of the field. But because the Dolphins are playing a zone coverage, they have 1 cornerback on each side of the field, which is going to create a mismatch where you have this receiver, Keenan Allen, against David Long. Doesn't work out great. It's going to get even worse because the Chargers are actually going to empty out the backfield, go to a spread look. Justin Herbert sees there's a mismatch, and you see him right here give Keenan Allen some sort of audible that's going to change it to what looks like a post wheel, where the Keenan Allen, so first, actually, Mike Williams is going to run what is basically a post. He's really just trying to clear out the coverage and get the attention of the corner, Xavier Howard, and the safety to this side of the field. And what Keenan Allen's going to do is sell basically an option route where you slow play it and you close ground, and it looks like you're reading the defender's leverage to determine where you're going to break. But what he's actually going to do is break outside and then take the route upfield. And Mike Williams is going to do a great job attracting coverage, and Keenan Allen's going to get wide open. So I'll run this real quick. So like I said, Keenan Allen closing that ground, stops, breaks out. David Long's thinking, outbreaking route. Nope, take it upfield. Keenan Allen wide open. And then you'll also see one more time right here. You see, Xavier Howard and the safety are both paying so much attention to Mike Williams. Xavier Howard's going to try to squeeze that route, knowing that Mike Williams is a deep threat, and it's going to create that window on the outside for Keenan Allen. Now, what are your thoughts on the Patriots being able to use different personnel groupings to, as we saw here, exploit matchups that you would never want to see on Sundays?
Yeah, no, I think this is a perfect example because of the fact that Miami looks like they have a look that maybe could potentially, be a good, like this is, like you said, their base. This is what they want for run stopping, opportunities. And the Chargers look like they could potentially be coming out in a run look, like you said, 12 personnel. But like this is the perfect stuff that if you can get Mac Jones just enough protection and get him firing on time, these are the kind of plays where you can create big plays against this Dolphins defense because you've got guys like David Long who are anticipating either an option or something to the flat. This was one of the first plays I looked at from this tape. I believe it was on one of the first drives. And I was like, this is kind of what I think Miami's pass defense is going to be susceptible to. A lot of people were like, why is David Long on Keenan Allen? And I was saying, I don't think it's necessarily a bad look from Miami as much as it is just really good exploitation from Kellen Moore because of the fact that, like you said, you've got like this delay from Keenan Allen on this double move, and you've got Mike Williams coming over the top, and he's occupying both of those defenders. Miami is going, because of the fact that they're running a lot of zone defense, it's going to be a lot of 3-on-2 scenarios. And then if you can turn those into 1-on-1s with the guys that you want to exploit, that's where you're going to be able to win. I think if you just, are able to pose enough of a threat to the point where I think Miami was playing a lot of these deeper and being more not wanting to give up a deep ball because of the fact that they were playing Justin Herbert, which made them play so conservative. But they've got guys like Cater Kohu, Xavier Howard, Cam Smith might get some run. We don't know, he hasn't played much of late. I'm not saying that that's going to happen. Eli Apple, another guy that plays, somewhat aggressive. I think these guys were maybe more sitting back this game. So I'm saying if you could just get Mac Jones make him enough of a threat to throw down the field, you're going to find yourself in situations like this where they're scared of these deep posts or these routes that end up being clear outs. And then you have deep balls over the top or just big plays in general.
And people don't think of Mac Jones as the kind of quarterback that will do that. But if you go back to his Alabama days, he was more than willing to take downfield shots when they presented themselves. And he actually had 4 big-time throws just last week. So he clearly has the potential to make those kinds of plays. Now, whether or not he can do it on a consistent basis with this offense, we will see. And one more thing I do want to mention here is we saw actually last week against the Eagles, this receiver right here, Keenan Allen, that was Demario Douglas, who is one of their more explosive threats. He's a rookie. So, the jury is still out on how consistently he can produce, but he had 4 catches for 40 yards, had some downfield production, and there was a play where he actually got matched up against, I believe it was Zach Cunningham, on an option route where he broke inside because of the rain. Mac threw it high to him, but you already saw the glimpses of Bill O'Brien. He calls this one of his playmaking positions. He says all of these positions inside are where you want to put your playmakers, but when you put a quick guy at the number 2 weak spot, especially if a defense is playing too high, they're almost always going to have to match with a linebacker because the strength of the formation is here, and that's where you want to put your slot corner. You can check out more on that. I broke that down in the video, how Bill O'Brien schemed for success on the Patriots CLNS YouTube channel. But with that said, Tyler, thank you so much, man. This was a blast. I had a great time. I learned a lot today. I'm sure everybody else did as well. Before I send you out and let you have the rest of your evening, let the people know where they can find you and what other outstanding content I know you got coming out soon.
All right. So I got to say this first. Thank you so much for having me. This was a blast. Like you said, I definitely picked up some stuff, and I'm really excited for this game on Sunday. I think, like you said, could be a really fun chess match. As for finding me, it's the @ that's on the screen, DeSena Sports. That's pretty much everywhere. A little bit on YouTube, primarily Twitter's the spot where I'm posting most of my stuff. There is the podcast, Weeball Podcast, either at Weeball Podcast or at Weeball Network, depending on the platform. But that's where me and my buddy Luke, it's primarily NFL draft based. We're doing a lot of our scouting stuff there. But if you want to see NFL content, and more specifically some Dolphins content, look at one of your division opponents. That's mostly going to be on my Twitter, and I've been putting out a lot of stuff on there.
I know I'll be following along. I already have, and I continue to learn. Once again, Tyler, thank you so much, buddy. I appreciate your time. Thank you all for watching, everybody. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other, and we will see you next time.